you who believe. Now, if Allah is speaking to mankind, yeah, you have a nasu, that's mankind. All right? If Allah is speaking to mankind, whatever Allah is telling mankind, the believers should have that much more of a grasp of what he's saying. If Allah is speaking to mankind, mankind will hear it and understand it, but the believers should have a grasp on what he's saying a little more than the other two, the Muslim and and mankind. As I start the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and this is Surah 49, Surah 49, Ayat 13. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. O mankind, we have created you from one father, who is Adam, one mother, who is Eve. So there is no difference between you in lineage. And we have made you by procreation into multiple nations and tribes, so that you may know one another. Lo, the most noble of you all in the sight of Allah is the one who fears him the most. Allah is the fears him the most. Allah is the knower, and Allah is the knower of the righteous and aware of them. Allah tells us throughout the Quran that if it was his will, he could have made all of mankind one person, one people. Okay? If it was his will. Let me go back first and deal with the lineage. He said, by procreation we made you into nation and tribes. He also mentioned that there's no difference in your lineage. Your lineage is your ancestry or your family. Procreation is the extension of life. This is what Allah told us in this particular surah. He did this for a purpose. Throughout the Quran, Allah tells us that if it was his will, he could have made all of mankind as single people. But he put something into all of mankind that is common lineage, giving mankind a free will to pursue his own paths, hoping for that path to lead to the straight path of mustaqim to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He separated mankind into ethnic groups and ethnic and geographical groups to test them and to test him or them into what he has given them. So be you Arab, non-Arab, black or white, you are who you are by Allah's command. He made you who you are, so don't try to be someone else, and no one else should try to be you. So we are different for a reason, so we can know one another. So we can use what Allah put in us all as a test to learn one another. For procreation, Allah created the human being from one nafs. One nafs, that's the inner. One nafs, one mind, one personality, one physical makeup, one soul, and from all the things that make an inner person. Scripture language, nafs means that will dwell, that will live, that will grow, that will mature inside the physical body. Notice all the parts we mentioned in reference to nafs, none of those parts are physical. Nothing you can actually touch. Okay? Your mind, your personality, your psychology, your soul, these things that make up the inner soul. And that is what procreation is. That what's in you that comes out. And that's something you control as it comes out. Allah created man from one soul, and he created that one, and from that one soul, he created that soul a mate. The human being, or for the human being, the process of procreation is the extension of life. If we think of procreation only as extension of flesh, we lose the understanding of procreation. Procreation is to extend the inner life, and the inner life is the real life. So therefore, in our community, we get married to stay out of harm's way. Fornication, womanizing on both sides, whatever it may be, or manizing, but those things we get married for that reason. The reason to get married is for procreation. Quickly, I live in Roselle. Roselle on the Linden side of St. George of Wood Avenue. If you right now go in the area, you will see we get a lesson from the Jews. You look at them, they'll be riding, they come from Brooklyn, they're moving back into New Jersey. Every young girl, these girls are 16, 17, and 18 years old, all of them have at least 3 kids, and they're all over the place because they're interested in procreation. And some of these marriages has been arranged. Like one of those women I lived pretty close to, we talk quite often, and her arranged was marriage. Her marriage was arranged. Therefore, she had no choice, but she's happy, she said. But the point is that that is what getting married is all about, to extend the inner person. And that's what these Jews are doing. They're extending the inner person. But if you get a chance, go on the Roselle side of Wood Avenue, across from Linden, and travel any of those blocks across, and you will see an unbelievable community building up in our midst. So we can learn from them what goes on. In the African American community, in history, in the 50s, the 30s, or in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, back in 1950 and on, most of our families from the South were big families. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. The reason why our fathers understood that procreation, to keep the farm running, I got to have people, I have to have children. The children is to extend my farm. This is my farm. I had a farm in here. Okay, so that's what we did back. We used to use procreation as a means to keep the family or the family business going. Allah tells us by procreation, He put us in tribes, nations and tribes. Tribes for us is our different communities. Nations is different people from different areas, different countries. Okay? If you use Yusuf Ali's translation tafsir, he also adds, so that you do not despise one another. Allah told us that if you know one another, you won't despise anyone because you know. So He's given us the key to peace on earth. Remember, He's talking to an-nasu. He's talking to the world. He's talking to all of mankind, not only Muslims. The Muslims, we should understand that. For the brothers and sisters here at this masjid, we would like this masjid to be a community masjid, an active participating membership masjid, where you can come here and get some of your business straight, or you can come here for worship, not just some place to pray. We use this masjid only as a masala, just to pray. You pray in a masala. But the masjid is supposed to be active back and forth as we communicate and build a nation. We're going to stop and to make a dua now so I can move on, so I don't want to leave everything out, inshallah. Okay, as we go on, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Jummah Mubarak, Ramadan Mubarak. Alhamdulillah. Allah tells us again, by procreation, He's made us into tribes and nations. Now this is something that we have to deal with because this is Ramadan. In Ramadan, you need to come out of this month better than you were last month. And this particular part we're speaking of, we're going to speak not only, but to the immigrant brothers we have here. Immigrant brothers who come to work with us and to pray with us. Allah tells us again, in order for us to know one another, there's no way you can know me or I can know you unless we fraternize. We don't fraternize, we do not have any meaningful conversation at this masjid. You come in, you make your salat, and then you leave. I would imagine, say, 90%, if not all of you, learn something about an African American Muslim or an African American self from someone other than an African American. And I know that's how things are. Most immigrants come in from other countries, Latino countries, whatever. They learn about the African Americans from another source, not from the African American. We need to know your story just as well as you need to know our story to see where you come from. It puzzles me and it puzzles many Muslims to say, and I'd like to hear your story individually. There's things I can't say to you from up here because you can't answer me from up here, because this is junuah. But we need to sit down and break bread together and eat. If you eat together, you break bread together, and you have a conversation, you can learn one another. You can know things about me that you need to know, and I can learn things about you. We had and I can learn things about you. Now, I'd like to know from you, and if other Muslims try to find out, say, what would make a Muslim leave their Muslim country and come here? Everybody got individual stories, but those stories will give me a chance to understand Islam in the whole, the way the world is working, okay? Because most African American Muslims thinking that if you leave, that a Muslim country is paradise. Not so. I know there's some things when I made Hajj, some things I seen over there, I would love to speak to a brother on the side in reference to it, just to get their opinion of some things that I see in Saudi and in Egypt. But the point is that we can't do that from up here. We have to have conversation. We must come together as a community. In order for us to come together as a community, we must put together dialogue, answer each other's questions. In fact, in this country, namely the people from the Nation of Islam, the African American Muslims in this country are your ancestors in this country. In this country, we're your ancestors. And what do you do for your ancestors? You find out as much as you can about your ancestors so you can know where you're going. Because there was a man, two men, one man by the name of Elijah Muhammad, one man by the name of Dr. Farad Muhammad. You might, and then again, you might not have heard of either one of these guys. But the point is, they're the reason why you're here and why I'm here today. Because they cultivated, as we say when we make salat, we say, hayla salat, hayla salat, come to prayer, come to success, come to cultivation. Elijah Muhammad, the Nation of Islam and his community was the one who cultivated this land for you to come here, and you come here to live. 60 years ago, your fathers didn't come here because it wasn't time yet. It was time after people in the Nation of Islam, like Elijah Muhammad and his community, was persecuted, the same way as our founders of Islam. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his companions was persecuted. Some thrown in jail. Elijah Muhammad was persecuted, thrown in jail, just to make the temple, just to make the soil right for us to plant the seeds we're planting now today. If you study this Nation of Islam blueprint plan, things will be a little different today for you than they are now. Because many of my brothers come with a lot of money, and they're building masjids all over the place. But you grew up in Baskin Ridge, it's unbelievable what they're putting up there. And you go down to Patterson, you go down to Edison, whatever, you see beautiful masjids coming up, sajdas. But if you studied Elijah Muhammad's plan, you would know you need a hospital. We need a hospital. Where is the halal Muslim hospital at in this particular country or in this area? There are none. But like I said before, how we learn from others, these Jews in the Roseville Linden area have put up two medical centers, two Medi-Marriage centers for their people to come to, okay? And these are the things that Honorable Elijah Muhammad's program was stressing. The point is that you be Muslim, we can pray anywhere. If we had a masjid, we can pray in the masjid's basement. We had a hospital, we can pray in the hospital's basement. A school, we can pray in the school basement. These are the things that are part of the program that I would say that if you learn about the African American Muslim, you will learn a lot and learn how to proceed on your own. Now this community is 1932, 2932, that's when the Nation of Islam started. And this is very, very young compared to Islam itself. But the persecutors, some of the ill things that happen in this country, you need to know about so you could yourself fend from it. Now, one or two of you brothers I've seen out in the supermarket, in the street, but in the supermarket in particular. And I spoke to you, and you very barely spoke back to me. I can understand you don't know who I am, because I'm not here, okay? But the point is that we need to know one another for that reason. The world is crazy now. And even and I'm going to go as far as telling you, you need to know us so we can know you, so you can let your women know us in reference to who and how to speak to different people. Because if your wife, your daughter, or your sister is in a supermarket somewhere in this crazy country, and somebody gives them the piece, and they don't return it, that person you didn't return the piece to could be the one who could save your life if something was to happen. You could at least think, if I say Assalamu alaikum, salam, and something happened later on in that same supermarket, for a minute she could hope I'm still in there and help us come. That's what we have to understand to know each other, okay? Now, last week we had an iftar. And the iftar came out very, very good, very well. Brother at the doorway, Brother Dominic was the one who served it up. That's alhamdulillah, everything was right. And we had quite a few, not quite a few, we had a contingent of immigrants came, maybe about 8 to 12. Now, that's what I've said, certain things you learn from people who are not of the people you're talking to. Someone told me from Dar es Salaam, who wasn't an immigrant, he told me that one of the brothers over in Dar es Salaam tasted his wife's bean pie. And he was floored. He was really amazed with it, how it tastes. And he said she can't make enough now, okay? So at the iftar last Friday, I asked these brothers, have you tasted bean pie before? It was the small ones made. I said, have you tasted bean pie before? And granted, I'll tell you, bean pie don't sound like something delicious. Bean pie don't sound like something that's sweet. He said no. So I'm saying myself, I found out on my own investigation that quite a few of our immigrant brothers had no idea what a bean pie tastes like. But you have people who are non-African American, who are African American and non-African Americans, don't know anything about Islam, don't know anything about Muslims. But what they do know, you mentioned the Muslims, they know y'all don't eat pork and y'all eat bean pie. That's something they know. But that's what everybody other than the immigrants know. The immigrant Muslims, you haven't ventured out to see what these people are about. Once again, Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was a man who knew that for people, you must have a staple food. If you think about the Italians, spaghetti, pizza. Chinese, you think about French fried rice. You think about Spanish, Latino, you think about rice and beans. But if you think about the African American, only the African American, not the African American Muslim, you may say ham hocks and cheese, a ham hock and greens. But you speak about the African American Muslim, you're going to say bean pie. Bean pie, bean soup, and this man had the understanding back then to know that in order for people to grow, you must have a staple food, something that somebody knew you by. If I don't know you by your food, I don't know you at all. Brother Musa, we had a iftar a couple of years ago. He came and brought us a treat from his wife. We haven't got it back since, but he brought us a treat from his wife that everybody loved. Everybody said, can you get this again? Can you get it again? we got to know your food so you can know our food. So the brother last week said he tasted, he said, it's sweet, it's sweet. I said, yeah, it's a pie. But the point is, because it said bean pie, he stopped him there. When I was young, I went to high school in New York. I used to come home, walk down Orange Street, and two sisters I knew who weren't Muslim, but they worked in the Shabazz bakery. And I used to stop in and talk to them on the way home each and every day, and they offered me bean pie, bean pie, bean pie. I said, no, I don't want a bean pie. Give me them donuts. Okay, give me a donut, give me a donut. The whole time through high school, I never tasted bean pie. It was offered to me because of the name. So certain things we can understand why certain people don't do things, but the point is that, and I noticed that we have a brother who stands out in the hallway over here selling bean pies occasionally. Most of the time, now almost every week now. Anyway, and I've noticed none of my immigrant brothers buy it. And I understand now because you haven't tasted. What we want to do, after Ramadan's over in a couple of weeks, either get the small ones made or have the brother bring it enough, we're going to cut some bean pie up and let everybody taste some bean pie. This way you would know who we are. I'm saying it'll make a big difference. Because again, bean pie do not sound like something I want to eat. I'll tell you that for sure. But the point is that Honorable Elijah Muhammad understood that people have to have a staple food that they're known by. Now, I'm not sure what everybody's here said, but you have a staple food. You mention something, if you mention some of the Arabs or the immigrant Muslims, the first person, my wife would say, oh, that food is hot. The curry or whatever it may be, it's hot. You know, I love it. We was down in Edison, and we had was a wedding. And we had the community down there fixed the food, and I had a ball. I was burning up, and it was good. But the point is that everybody has a staple food, and we need to know each other. If you eat with each other, if you live with each other, you can know one another. Or we can have a conversation with one another. Now, sometimes we have things that what I didn't cover here was the fact is that we have different events here. We've had different events here, and some of you, my brother, will buy tickets to the event. But none of you would come. Praise be to Allah. Alhamdulillah, you buy tickets to support the event. But what we need is your participation. Now, it's a possibility you have a legitimate reason why you cannot come. In that case, the solution will be invite us down to your place. Simple as that. Just so we can get that camaraderie back and forth to know one another. So, inshallah, what we're going to do, we're going to set up a time within a couple of weeks that we can have some bean pie, and if I get a chance to taste some bean pie, who haven't. I can't say right now by show of hands that it won't be proper for June. But yourself, you know who you are. That day, we're going to offer you a piece of bean pie, or we make it the little small ones made. If I get the small ones made, get the small ones made, and you can take one, you can take one home so the family can taste, so you can see what this is, because it's very, very important. Now, as we close, I'd just like to mention a couple of things, housekeeping things. When junuah is over, those who are making sunnah salats, please step in the front of this door this way, so those can walk behind. The sisters ain't got to worry about because they're already cordoned off. But let everybody get out, and you have to keep your voices down. But to make it easier, come forward so those behind you can walk out without walking in the front of you. Lastly, I mentioned before when I was up here that it's almost like sitting on a plane. When you go to a plane, there's certain spots, if you can't perform, they ask you go to another seat. If you see about the emergency door, if you can't open the emergency door for physical reason, they will change your seat, no matter where you're going. Now, here, if you're on the extreme right, your job is to get the line straight. We should have to say, brother, heels on the line. Your heels on the line. And once you put your back heel on that line, everybody else to your left will line up with you. Very basic. I'm not telling you that you don't know. Just to make the line straight. Now, the logic behind your heels on the line, if I wear size 5 and you wear size 15, we put our toes on the line will be like that. But if we put our heels on the line, everybody will be straight, your back will be straight. In Saudi, you get some places, big places, they go shoulder to shoulder because the shoulders keep them straight. Therefore, we have to use our own method to keep ourselves straight by putting your heels on the line. inshallah, I've said something that we could use, and inshallah we can make this bean pie tasting event a good event. And then every Friday, well tonight we have iftar here at this masjid. So if you come back, we have food here tonight. And then after Ramadan is over, every fourth Friday, or the last Friday of the month, we will have community night, where you can come and socialize, just to talk. Because one brother, I spoke to one of the brothers here, we was talking briefly, he was telling me how it was when he first seen the snow, how cold it was. I mean, these are things that enlighten me, and also give me some insight of where you're coming from. So I thank Allah for allowing me this chance. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا. Oh Allah, give us the good in this life, the good in the hereafter, and protect us from the torment of the hellfire. Ramadan Mubarak, Juma Mubarak.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله